Oh, we're starting.
We're starting.
Hello. The music ended.
When did you all get here?
Hey. Hi, I'm Carrie Byron. I am the director of the National STEM Festival, and I have the honor today to start this conversation and moderate these two amazing gentlemen. I will let you guys introduce yourselves.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chike Agu. Recently left the U.S. Department of Labor as the Chief Innovation Officer and currently a Senior Advisor at the Project on Workforce at Harvard University.
Great. John Bailey. I wear a couple different hats. I'm a fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, a fellow at the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative, also an advisor here at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, well, this is an important conversation that we have been having continually. I would like to ask you guys, I know both of you have heard that statistic, that 65% of students in the classroom right now are going to enter careers that don't even exist yet. That's a crazy idea for me. With the rapid evolution of technology, what specific skills and knowledge do you think are indispensable for students to thrive in future careers?
I see we're asking easy questions this morning.
It is an easy question. I've been answering this one all day.
So here's the way that I think about it, and I think about jobs in kind of two halves. They're what I call the just-in-time skills and the timeless skills. And both are going to be really important for students in the future. When I say the just-in-time skills, this is about mastering these new cutting-edge technologies and tools that are going to be a part of every single job. Every job is now a technology job. A question is how much and what types. And we have to recognize that and make sure that we prepare students for that. One example that I always use is, right now, any of you who hire people would not hire someone who could not use Google search. You wouldn't. You would say they're not job ready. In 18 months, or less, ChatGPT will be that ubiquitous. You will not hire someone who cannot use that tool to do better on the job. So there are going to be more technologies like that over time, and we have to make sure the students are prepared for them. Then there's what I call the timeless skills, and these are the things that some people call human work, some people call soft skills, that my old boss, Stan McChrystal, will just call leadership. They are these things that human beings have been doing for thousands of years, from leadership to communication to problem identification, that will actually become more important as these technologies happen, because as time goes on, technology will do more and more things. And human beings are going to have to get really good at only the things that human beings can do. And it's going to be those things. So we have to make sure as we seek to prepare students, we're not looking at one or the other, we're looking at both, because it's that combination that's going to make those students indispensable, particularly those who are coming from areas of disadvantage, neglect, and underserved.
Yeah, I mean, that's such good points. I would just emphasize all those things and just say, not only is every job now a technology job, every job that is created is slightly higher skilled. And it's higher skilled because of technology. It's definitely going to be higher skilled because of AI. And so as a result, it just makes it more important that we have a lot of the fundamentals, particularly as you just heard with the science of reading that Mike was talking about. STEM is going to increasingly be important. You just look at where all the job growth is, particularly in broadband jobs, climate jobs. They all have some aspect of STEM to it. And then I think it's this last point. It's not so much that AI is going to disrupt and totally eliminate jobs. It's going to creep into different types of tasks that we do in our jobs. And what that means is that it's going to make what we do as humans, and not AI, slightly more skilled, and that's going to be a lot of communication, it's going to be a lot of problem solving, it's going to be a lot more sort of collaboration, but that is like a skill in itself that has to be taught. That's called soft skills, 21st century skills, critical skills. There's so many different language for it, but that's going to be increasingly important as we prepare students just to be flexible to adjust to all these different types of changing trends that we can see, but also a lot of trends that we can't see on the far horizon.
All of the students today are cyber natives. They've grown up with technology being a part of every aspect of their life in some way or another. But especially because of the pandemic, I feel like that gap in achievement has been exacerbated. So how do you bridge the gap to create more equitable opportunities?
So I'm really worried about this. I think you heard that on the last panel too. But I mean, you're all business leaders. If you look at the education indicators right now as economic indicators, you would think we're in a very deep recession. Chronic absenteeism is way up. Achievement levels are way down. We've lost 2 decades of progress in math. We're seeing this right now, that if you think about it, today's third grader, they were kindergartners when the pandemic first started. And so they have literally not had a single year of school that has been normal. And those are critical years for fundamentals. We know that if you're not able to read by the third grade, that is a predictor of a lot of other issues later on in high school, whether you go to college, and your success later in life. We know that these students are also lacking in a lot of social skills because they just haven't had time to be around other students and other people. And so it's a national emergency in a way that's just not getting covered. We've almost become sort of numb to every single new story that comes out or indicator that comes out that says like kids are X number of months or years behind. We're seeing some states move very aggressively with high dosage tutoring, critically important. Virginia just announced a new high dosage tutoring program. Tennessee has been a leader, with especially with a nonprofit that I'm on the board of called Zern Math, in terms of getting kids just-in-time math support. We need a lot more energy there in order to help kids catch up, because if we don't help them catch up, we're going to be feeling the economic pains of that later on, for us as society and industry, but also for them in terms of their individual prosperity.
So, Chike, as someone who has played a pivotal role in fostering innovation at the U.S. Department of Labor, how do you believe the federal government can contribute to equipping and teaching essential skills for students now that's going to help them, especially in a system that has been not so great to the historically underserved?
This week has not necessarily instilled the greatest confidence in the federal system here in DC. But in my time in government, the federal government is actually good at a couple of things. And I'll use one example, just as a historical context. If you go back to the mid-'60s and you look at desegregation after Brown v. Board of Education, in 1964-65, I think 17% of schools in the South were desegregated. If you look at the combination of federal enforcement, federal law, that went to about 84% of schools being desegregated by like 1970. So the federal government, when it puts its mind to it and deploys capital, creates incentives, can actually make things happen. And so when we think about what the federal government can do, what is it really good at? Creating the box. Here's the box that you operate in. Here are incentives to help you operate within that box to full effectiveness. And so when we think about it in this sense, I'd say a couple of things. One, and my old boss, Julie Sue, would talk about this, who's now the acting Secretary of Labor. One, we have to get the most in-demand skills to the most in-need people. There are a couple of reasons for that. Number one, because it's the right thing to do. As Joe Biden would say all the time, the workforce of America should look like America. The second reason is actually much more practical, and this is for business leaders. And I like to say this a lot when I talk to business leaders. All the computer science majors at MIT and Stanford have already been hired. All the people who are from the places that you've always looked, they've already been hired. You have to go to communities now to fill the billets that you have in communities you've never looked in. And this means going to communities of color. This means going to folks who are immigrants, folks who are poor, folks who are rural. Because frankly, demographically, there is no other choice. Because we are in a historically light labor market. And in fact, the Financial Times wrote recently about the forever tight labor market. Because demographically, at least in America, we just don't have the people that we used to. That's just a demographic reality. So the question is, if we make that, and the federal government makes that a North Star, how do we do it? And here's where you see a big push around new types of training and skill acquisition, like, for example, apprenticeship. Apprenticeship is valuable for a couple of reasons. One of which is to get at these human skills that John has talked about and so many other people have talked about. It's hard to just learn those in a classroom. It is hard to learn how to lead from reading a book. It's helpful as that's the way you start. It's a different thing to go on the job, sit with someone who's done this before, learn in real time, screw up, and learn, hey, here's how you lead a team. Here's how you write that email. Here's how you should have said this in that meeting. Here's how you fabricate this thing in real time. But we have to provide more and more of that. That's why you see the administration putting a ton of money toward apprenticeship and encouraging apprenticeships in new fields like advanced manufacturing, healthcare, high technology. So if we think about, the federal government setting that North Star of we need to get the most in-demand skills to the most in-need people. And then secondly, let's provide incentives, money, regulation, otherwise, to get new ways of doing that. That's how I think we can begin to move that needle. And the last piece I'll say is this is just critical because the federal government just invested $1 to $2 trillion in 3 critical needs industries: infrastructure, green technology, and semiconductor fabrication. None of those have the people that they need. I know because I sat with the leaders of those companies for 2.5 years when I was in government, and I listened to them ask me, "What are you going to do to help me get those workers?" And so this economic and the geopolitical stakes are really critical, and this is where I think the federal government can hopefully unleash innovation on the local and the state level to make that happen.
So how does the private sector engage?
Let me talk about companies and let me talk about capital. I think those are two ways to think about it. On the capital side, meaning I'm sure there are people in here who have capital that they are deploying to early stage companies. Invest in companies who are looking to solve different pieces of the problem around this. Whether it's companies who are looking at new ways to reskill people, like for example using XR to help reskill people who might have disabilities who normally wouldn't have access to a workplace. For the private company side, I would say, think about how you are bringing people into your company. Meaning, do you have arbitrary degree barriers where the degree doesn't actually relate to the qualifications of the job? More and more companies are realizing that it's putting a cap on the amount of talent that can come in. Are you creating easy on-ramps into your company from high-quality training programs? I see one of my old bosses, Kathleen Delasky, who's been working on this for years. When you have quality training programs, do you make it easy to go from that training program through HR into a job? Some companies think they do, but they don't. I think the last piece here is a bit of evangelism, talking about talent is everywhere and opportunity is not. I think we all say that, but do we actually live it? And in our companies, more important, frankly, than any CSR, any grants that you can give, change the way that you hire, and then change the way that you deal with that labor once you have it, and that will make the biggest difference in the world. And that's something that companies can do right now, today.
So I understand skills-based hiring is important, but how do you do that? How do you do that in the private sector, and how do you get the culture to change to implement that?
Yeah, again, we're asking only easy questions.
I'm sorry.
We're asking only easy questions here, and I really want to hear John's thoughts here. I'll say a couple of things. One, and I take this from my old colleague Matt Siegelman at Burning Glass Institute. If you want to do skills-based hiring, you need companies to be really clear on the skills that they need for each job. I have sat with companies, and I have asked 3 people at the same company what the skills are for a job, and I get 5 different answers. And so companies being really precise about what those skills are, most jobs are 32 separate subtasks. Are we that precise on what we're hiring for? Then secondly, what is the assessment that we are going to use for that? Again, right now the assessment is, do you have a college degree or not? In some cases that makes sense. In other cases it doesn't, and the question is, how do we make that not simply an arbitrary default, but actually a precise, we want this degree because we need it for this reason versus something else? I think the last piece is how do we update that over time? We're talking about how technology and STEM is going to grow and change. Prompt engineering as a job didn't exist 18 months ago. In 18 months, there'll be other jobs we didn't hear of, and some other jobs are going to go away. How up to date are we staying inside a company of what those jobs are going to be and how those skills need to move and change along the way? That's where I would start as we think about skills-based hiring. Sean, I'd love to hear your thoughts here.
No, I mean, this also goes back to the previous question too. Skills-based hiring is having, if you zoom back out of the sort of the chaos in DC right now, there is some areas of agreement that were started during the Trump administration and Obama administration, Trump, and also carried through with Biden. Skills-based hiring is one of those. It's happening with government. A number of governors have introduced that. We know a number of employers have. It's so vitally important, and Chike's right, that you have to be crystal clear about the skills that are needed for these different jobs. What's happened is that we've used degrees and years of experience as sort of just a crutch. It's just given us a pass and a little bit of a laziness, and it screens out a whole bunch of untapped labor pools. Those labor pools we have close to 39 million people who have some college but no degree. So they started college but dropped out, life circumstances or other institutional issues. But this offers them a pathway back in. We have second chance hiring coming out with criminal justice reform that the Chamber's been a huge leader on. But again, we need, those are people with amazing skills that need a pathway and being crystal clear on the skills. And then also, what Chike was saying too, apprenticeships. Apprenticeships are having a moment, a huge bipartisan moment. They're embedded into a number of the Inflation Reduction Act climate change programs. So there's a huge demand side. But we need you as employers to help on on the supplier side. And that, again, is like working with your employees, figuring out the skills, and then figuring out the ways for some of these prospective employees to get that training on the job, as well as some skills through colleges, community colleges, and other skills-based providers.
Do you think AI can help in teaching skills to kids today?
Oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm a huge... I don't think we've scratched the surface yet on what AI can do in terms of helping, but it's amazing. We were just here yesterday, and I just showed a demonstration of how 6 sentences can turn ChatGPT into an adaptive tutor. For any student, any subject, any language, it connected to any student's interests. So if it's John, 6th grade, fractions, and I'm interested in Star Wars, all the examples are Star Wars. You play that out, and I've crafted prompts that allow ChatGPT to be a mock job interview, asks a question, I give it a response, and then it grades that response and gives me some tips on how to do it. I had someone, I won't say her name, but she was briefing President Obama 2 weeks ago, and she was very nervous about it. And so we created a President Obama simulator that would using ChatGPT, that would ask questions in his style, in kind of his way, to kind of help her just get into the rhythm of how to prepare for that. So I think we're just scratching the surface there. Combine that with also something else Chike say, like I'm very bullish on VR in the long term. I think as the hardware gets better and cheaper and a little bit more comfortable, it's going to be more widely adopted. But the early use cases that are so powerful are in job training. So company Striver is working, if you think about engineers that have to work on airplanes, it's dangerous, it's also expensive. You don't want to just shut down part of the tarmac and have engineer students go out and sort of learn the different parts of the plane. So they have, JetBlue is using this as a way of helping to train their engineers. Walmart is putting all their associates through this. It's an immersive experience, and it works so well in so many different job training situations. So I think, again, you're going to be on the cutting edge of using some of these new technologies because of the needs that you have for reskilling or upskilling or bringing on new employees, but I'm super bullish and excited about it.
Do you know any success stories that we can talk about preparing students for the future?
One that I think about, and then I'll probably broaden kind of the opportunity youth angle, is actually using XR, which I think is a really powerful example. Is if you go to the University of Maryland at College Park, not too far from here, there is something called LASER, the Lab for Applied Social Science Research, run by Dr. Rashawn Ray. And what he has done is actually taken XR and used it for job training, actually in prison and jail settings for folks who are going to be released shortly. And he trains folks on 3 things, and you actually simulate an interview. So basically, it's an XR scan. You put it on, you're in a room, and the engine is a job interview engine powered by AI, and you learn to do 3 things. You learn to do a job interview, because many folks have never done a job interview. These are folks who are 16 to 24, who have never done a job interview before, likely first time. Secondly, to get a house. Hey, here's how I go and find housing. And then lastly, getting a vehicle. We know those are 3 big determinants of people when they come out actually having a quality career, particularly when they're very young. And they've actually done this in Tennessee, as well as a number of other states behind the 4 walls, and actually have gotten to a price point of $150 a head to actually deploy this for 4 or 5 months behind those 4 walls. Really high quality use case. The other ones that I've seen are actually for workers and students with disabilities who have IEPs, particularly who it may be hard for them to get into an office setting. And so that's one particular example of combining these emerging technologies. And we don't talk enough about the intersection of these technologies, but when you combine an XR with AI, it's very powerful because then you actually have an immersive experience where you actually have someone, imagine if they had been wearing a HoloLens headset when you did the Obama simulator, and they actually were in their room with President Obama, quote unquote, to do this, how much powerful and more prepared they would have been, even on top of what had been done. One other thing I'll say on AI is we talk a lot about what it can do for students. As someone who started their career as a 2nd grade teacher, the power it has for the adults in the system is also powerful. If I were to go to my time and look at the amount of my time that I use for instruction versus, frankly, administrative work that had to get done, but frankly, I wasn't the best person to do it, writing emails, filling out certain forms, things like that, what a Bard or a ChatGPT can do and put that time back in teachers' hands to do what they're really best at is transformative. And also, I think it'd actually be a key to keeping more teachers in the profession because they can spend more of their time doing what they love and hopefully less hours overall.
Teachers work in inspiration. That's really why they want to be there. And I think if we're going to create a robust and diverse pipeline into the workforce, we need to be teaching critical thinking. That is the most important thing. Before kids can learn anything, they know how to do it critically. We need to teach empathy. They need to be inspired into wanting to help each other. And I think that we need to give them confidence that they're able to use science, technology, engineering, and math, because I think that especially when you're talking about underserved areas, they don't have the access that can give them the confidence that they feel like they belong in STEM jobs. I'm just going to throw this out here to you guys. This year, we have started an initiative called the National STEM Festival. It's a nationwide challenge for kids 6th through 12th grade. We are asking kids to come up with a project. They can invent, ideate, research, come up with some sort of project that will make the world a better place, have a positive impact under themes that kids think about every day, like environmental stewardship, tech for good, powering the planet. It's all things that kids think about all the time. So right now, this nationwide challenge open today. Submissions are open for the next month. We're looking for corporations to actually jump in and help here because we really want to create confidence, that catalyst moment when a kid goes, oh, I figured out this problem and I belong in STEM. This is so important, and we're trying to get the word out to all of you guys because we're also looking for reviewers to help do a blind review of the kids' projects so that corporations, CEOs, STEM adjacent, and STEM leaders can give real-time feedback to every kid. Every single kid that puts in a project can get some feedback by somebody in industry so that they can see that pipeline. They can see how they can go from their school and their education into the jobs of the future. So if you would like to go to the nationalstemchallenge.com, you can find all the details and deadlines. You can sign up to be a reviewer, and please help us get the word out. And if any if any corporate sponsors want to come in and help us get these kids here, we're trying to erase the barriers, like I can't afford to go to DC. Yes. We want to fly all the kids in so that it isn't just the kids that can afford to be here, but kids everywhere in the territories, the states, DOD, BIE schools. That's one way that we are trying to encourage the STEM generation with the Department of Education. We'll be presenting the STEM Festival here in DC in April. So there's how you guys can be part of the solution. I know that John's actually on our advisory board, so.
Definitely do this. Go back,
Absolutely.
talk to your CEOs, and get involved in this. It's really exciting.
I mean, what are other ways that we can really encourage kids to feel like they can go into these incredibly new and exciting fields? I mean, how do you encourage a kid to get into jobs that don't exist?
You first have to show them that the jobs exist. I mean, that it's a very basic thing, and it starts here, doesn't end here, but literally, I think about, I'm from Prince George's County, which is right over the border in Maryland, and I remember 7 years ago taking 3 high school seniors to a game design studio in the Hunt Valley of Maryland, for those of you who know it, and literally getting them to walk around with game designers for 3 hours on a Monday morning just to understand that that is a job that exists and that they could do. Very basic, but very important. Also, and this goes back to the apprenticeship angle, giving really students a chance to work in those environments. Number one, to learn how it works, to learn how the rhythm of those organizations, and also see that they could actually be here. I think as much see, touch, and feel as we can give kids in these environments as early as possible, the better it is. And if we're honest, if we think about the kids who are most successful, they usually got that. Mm-hmm. And so the question is, how do we take what we give some kids and make sure that it's available to all kids?
Part of the evangelism.
Yes.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think you have to look at a couple different indicators. One, there's one theory about why some kids are not showing up to school, why that chronic absenteeism rate is so high. It's that kids are just bored. They're bored with the way we've designed school. And I don't think that's for every kid, but I think there's a certain number of kids that had more experiential, hands-on type of learning during the pandemic. And they're coming back into a more traditional classroom setting, and it's just not resonating. We're also seeing that with a continued disenrollment from higher education. And I think it's not that higher education is not valuable, it's the way we're delivering it. So this goes a little bit to what Chike said. I think kids are craving experiential learning. They just don't want textbooks and lectures. They want to be working on projects that have connection to real-world problems. It's why the National STEM Festival is so important. It's why connecting this to experiential learning and to real-life examples with real-life professionals, I think can help invigorate both core curriculum, but also help inspire kids for the career pathways that they want to explore in the future.
John, Chike, thank you so much. This has been this conversation could go on for the next 3 hours,
Absolutely.
but unfortunately, we have run out of time. They're about to turn the music on and walk us off stage.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.